So you think you're going to have a catchphrase as well?
Man.
Maybe like kapow? Hi, I'm Emeril Lagasse.
The culinary icon that is my dad. And I am EJ Lagasse, and I am here
at our restaurant Emeril's in New Orleans. So, EJ, do you remember kind of your first memories of cooking?
Yeah. I really do. I mean, growing up in New York and being there, I remember you coming home from filming, Emeril Live or Essence of Emeril. And, I remember like very fondly making chicken noodle soup, like very early on, and like peeling carrots. I think there's like family pictures of that. That's probably one of the earliest like cooking memories that I have. Of course, like eating and tasting everything under the sun that you would make, when you were home and cooking, and then eating out, a lot. I very fondly remember very, very early dinners and things like that were definitely instrumental in me becoming a chef.
It's amazing to me that what we have in common is that, like, my first inspiration was with my mom, Hilda, making a soup. And it seems like your first inspiration was also making chicken noodle soup together, you and I.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's funny, huh, to think about it like that.
Yeah, probably about the same age.
Probably,
Like,
yeah. I mean, and I think it comes down to the fact
right,
that like you're not going to give a 4-year-old a knife to cut some carrots with. So I think the peeling was about as good as I could get at that point.
right, right. Do you have memories of dishes that I've cooked for you at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think one that always circles back is like when we would go to Mikey's to get fish on First Ave, and you would always grab like salmon, and you would do lentils depuis with cumin and carrots and the whole deal, with either green beans or something on the side. But that was one of those like really early at home dishes that I remember you doing was like roasted salmon and lentils, which I to this day will every other month have a craving for that exact dish and have to go and get salmon and have to go get lentils and make salmon and lentils at home. That's a very
Yeah,
early one.
we still doing it.
You never really did the restaurant dishes at home, because I think that like you knew that we were eating them when we would come and eat at Emeril's or Steakhouse or wherever we would be, but like I can never remember you making like barbecue shrimp or something like that at home unless we were having people over to the house. You were never like on a random Sunday just like, oh, we're gonna do barbecue shrimp tonight. Because I think you
Well,
were trying to be a bit more out of the box. You were trying to do your own, whatever you wanted to cook at the time.
yeah, more for sure, more home style dishes, right?
A lot of
Uh,
Portuguese food, a lot of Portuguese food.
I have good memories of when you first said that you were going to be a chef, or that you wanted to be a chef,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, can you tell us about that and where it was and about how old? I mean, 'cause you grew up in the kitchen and, was alongside of me all the time, either being in the dining room talking to guests or being in the kitchen and wanting to help. But when was it that you really just kind of put it together?
Well, I think I said it to you like very early on, but it was so early that I don't think, I mean, any responsible parent could take that seriously. You know what I mean? Because I
Right.
remember saying it to you after dinner at Cafe Baloo in the car, like on the way home, when we had the duck
Yeah.
thing, when Gavin, when Chef Kaysen was the chef at Cafe Baloo, and we've spoken about that before. But I remember that being the first time that I said to you, like, this is something that I could actually do. Like, I would like to do this. And I think you gave it the old, like, yeah, sounds great, man. You know what I mean? But I'm like 8 years old. So, like, how do you take that at any part seriously? And then I think it was just a few years later that, we were in the kitchen at Emeril's, and I told you one night after dinner service that I was like, hey, this is really what I want to do. And the first thing you said is, well, like, you're not going to work for me. You're going to go work for other people. And,
Yeah.
it's the best advice that I could give anybody.
So you think that was great advice that I gave you?
Yeah.
That you had to get out of the nest?
Yeah, because I don't think there's any growing in a place that you're comfortable at already. And I was like just naturally comfortable at Emeril's because I had been in there since I was, so small. It never felt uncomfortable. Cooking at Emeril's never felt uncomfortable. I don't know if it was from a sense of like, I don't know if there's going to be any, like, if there was any issues, like I wasn't going to get in trouble cooking or anything like that, if that makes sense. And so I think the best advice that you gave was like, yeah, okay, sounds great, but there is no chance you're just going to, cook at Emeril's for 10 years and then become the chef, basically. You knew that just wasn't the way to do it.
What was that journey after you left Emerald's? Was involved with me opening Coastal,
Yeah.
which is a challenge because I remember after school every day you'd be in the restaurant, like
Well, and
full
I got in
fledged.
trouble at school because I kept trying to leave school early. I mean, you remember that? Like they were like calling you, like, "Where's EJ?" Because like I'd leave, and I'd
Right.
just be at the restaurant all the time. That was just, because I loved it so much, and I saw that you were putting in so much to opening this new restaurant and trying to get it, to get something going. And I think that made me care a lot about the restaurant, obviously, which was fun. I think it all really started for me progressing when, eating at Le Bernardin or going and having a family dinner, around Thanksgiving or Christmas at Le Bernardin for a long time. I mean, when I was a child. And then I think that, I had met Chef Repair many a times then, at the restaurant. And then I think that we did Cayman cookout together in like, oh, I don't know, man, probably 2014 or 15 or 13 or something like that. And
Hmm.
that's when you said to Chef Repair, hey, like, he's really wanting to become a chef. And I remember you said something that was a joke, and Chef Danielle was next to you, sitting next to you, and Chef Danielle started laughing because you were like, "Yeah, he wants to be a chef, but I don't think he wants to do my style of stuff. I think he wants to like do whatever you guys are doing." And we were joking about that, and that was the year that Chef Jose bought Chef Repair the 3 Michelin star swim trunks
Yeah.
when he had the, you know what I'm talking about, when he had the, when he bought them and he gave, and then everybody was giving him hell about the swim trunks.
Yeah.
Uh, and so there was, an on-running joke about that. And so then Chef Repair and Chef Danielle both invited me to their restaurants. And then obviously, what happened over the next 3 years, and working in both of those restaurants for a bit of time, and set a very humbling precedent for, the amount of work that was going to be ahead of actually trying to become a chef. And not just become a chef and like, okay, now I cook, or okay, I went to Johnson & Wales, so now I am a chef, or anything like that, in a sense of like genuinely understanding what it takes to operate at a high level.
So you were like 15, 16, and you went back to New York City.
Yeah.
You pretty much were there for months, living back in New York City, pretty much on your own
Yeah.
at
I mean,
16.
collectively, it was probably like 2 years, collectively, all together, all the different trips. What do you think was your reactions to all of those different stages that you were able to witness, not only as a father, but as a chef, as a mentor in that regard?
I think that it was really well rounded, your training. I mean, I think that you got the classics and the education at Johnson and Wales. I think that you really evolved tremendously at Le Bernardin. I think you understood discipline at Danielle. I think that you saw a different form of creativity at Core with Claire and with Chef Johnny, as well as Franson, as well as Henrique in Lisbon. And then it was time, like, to say, okay, Ej, it's time to come home. And then you came back and moved to New Orleans and entered Emerils and became the chef patron. How was that experience? How was that evolving for you? Because now I see a lot of evolution at the restaurant. Excuse me. We have 3 services left before we close for 33 years of full on renovation, which you have spearheaded. How does that feel for you?
I mean, it's remarkable.
It's enlightening for me to see a lot of things that I've been dreaming about doing for years. It's great for me to see it coming to fruition.
I think when I was younger and you described some of those ambitions that you had for the restaurant to me, when I was younger, I think that certainly helped me understand what I think the next steps in your mind were for Emerils. I didn't think we would be at the point where we were renovating fully to move into that, anytime soon. And I think it's really cool because I feel in touch with 27-year-old Emeril, gearing up to open your first restaurant. I feel like we're reopening Emerils. That's what it feels like. That's a really cool experience for me because we've always been very close, from a personal standpoint in just personal life and things that have nothing to do with food. But now I think we're becoming very close in a sense of understanding of the business. I'm understanding like in a very different age. I'm understanding some of the hardships that you might have went through and trying, and it gives me a different sense of empathy and understanding your thought process now. And like everything you've warned me about going into this renovation, like it's been spot on. You know what I mean? Like there is no advice that hasn't come to fruition, if that makes sense. Be careful doing this, be careful doing that. Or that sounds great, that sounds great. They've worked and they've happened. Like that's, you know what I mean? So I think that you have that very special perspective because you're having March 26, 1990 all over again, in the fall this year. Whereas it may be my first, real, have the doors open and have a shot at it really in the way you want it to set up. But, when you opened in 1990, you had built that restaurant to do exactly what you wanted it to do. It was how you wanted it to be. It was avant-garde at the time. It was an expression of yourself. It was art, coming from you, from your inner being. And so I definitely am trying to channel that. And I've been successful in channeling that sort of emotional connection to the opening. So what does it feel like for you seeing the restaurant reopen? Am I correct in saying that it feels like March 26, 1990 all over again type of thing?
Yeah, but in a much grander scale. You know, dreams and things that I've thought about for many years now are really getting ready to happen. And I can't go into a lot of detail right now. All I can say to folks out there is that you'll have to come and see what we're doing.
You're always up for a little plug tease, man. You're so good at those.
No, I'm being really sincere. I mean, we have 3 services left, and then we're going to close for a bit of time to do a full-on renovation, and then hopefully successfully we reopen and successfully make it another 33 years.
Well, cheers to that, man. We were looking at some of those construction documents, and I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna have to take this wall out. It's been here for 39 years. It was here 6 years before you opened the restaurant." And your comment was, "Oh man, who knows what's gonna be behind that wall?" And it's just like that's hilarious to me because you have 34 years of memories in this building, really, and 34 years of stories, and we always say if these walls could talk, you'd be able to write a series of books. But I think it's funny, like taking a sledgehammer to a wall that's been there for 35 years. There's something a bit like spidey sense tingling about that. You know what I mean? I'm very excited, but it's like, ooh, here we go. This is the next stage of this. It's pretty
Absolutely.
It's pretty fun.
And then what you could do is just kind of bam, 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 bam. Just kind of a few bams.
So, Dad, as we've been, like last night we were talking about it, and obviously, as you said, we won't go into detail, but there's some nods in the renovation that pay some homage, if you will, to some of your classic moments on television, because I think it's a part of culinary history that isn't related to the restaurants, but is so significant for the restaurant. I mean, you had no dream of television when you opened the restaurant.
No, I opened the restaurant, and then I opened NOLA, a second restaurant in the French Quarter, only because I was preventing or trying to prevent the revolving door from happening and wanting to keep people that I happen to respect and like, and that were hardworking. And then this television thing came, and like I said, and like you said, I had no idea that I would ever do television. I knew that I would do a morning appearance here or an appearance here or whatever, but to full on do television from Essence of Emeril to 12 seasons to Emeril Live. The only reason that I took the challenge on was because honestly, I really wanted to teach people more about food and to respect food, shopping, wine, spirits, etc. And that if I could do that and take the intimidation factor out of it
Yeah.
and get people excited to want to cook and to want to try things, whether it was a pot roast or a hamburger. And then the whole musical thing happened with Emeril Live because obviously my musical background, our musical background, it was kind of a hoop for me to have musical artists come on that were interested about food in some way or another. But it was an interesting ride, to say the least, a very proud one, to really think now back that I took a network from 0 to 100 million viewers around the world. It was pretty spectacular.
Over 2,000 shows, man.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, as you know, especially, how close you and I are, at the end of the day, I'm a chef. At the
Yeah.
end of the day, I'm a restaurateur. And at the end of the day, the same results matter. It's about making people happy through food, through wine, through service, through having an experience.
You have this very interesting connection with people, and I see it when people come up to you and say hi. They feel like they almost know you, and I think that that's because of how intimate the idea of a primetime television show in a living room is. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that you were able to make that difference for people and take that intimidation out of food. Much like, when you're trying to operate on a high level in a restaurant like you were back in the day or like we are now, you're trying to take the intimidation out of it for your team and build confidence in your team. And so there's definitely a parallel there. You could view food television as a wing of hospitality. I certainly do. You certainly could. It's a very important moment, I think. And there's no shying away from that. You did so many episodes, so many hours, worked so hard, 4 or 5 shows a day. For me, I'm the same as you. I'm a chef, and it'll be that way, and hopefully till the end of time for me. And if television for me comes out of the same thing of wanting to teach people, allow people to see a glimpse into the world that which we work in, what you accomplished is nobody's going to do that again.
Wow.
And I know you would never say that about yourself, but I'll say that. And the way that you took like elements of like Jay Leno and stuff, and had a live band, and I mean, it was like the coolest late night talk show ever. It was
Wow.
late night talk shows with flambéed and bruleed bananas.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah, exactly.
This is cool, man. It was cool.
I think now, having the ability to do these shows on Roku now is it's just a lot of fun creating and, sort of directing myself, into today's time. It's kind of a hoot to kind of see that evolve,
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam.
I think you know where BAM came from, EJ. I think you've heard the story enough times
Oh, yeah.
to know how that came about. It was really kind of waking everybody up in the
We're
studio.
doing 5 shows a day. You have to, man.
Yeah, eight shows a day. Then being a food show and eating all the food,
Were they always an hour? They were always an hour, right?
Well, those were half-hour shows
Half hour.
at the time.
Okay.
In the essence of Emeril Live was an hour show, but that's where the whole BAM thing came from. So you think you're gonna have a catchphrase as well?
Man.
Maybe like kapow,
I think I'll leave the catchphrases
beach.
to you. Yeah, I think I'll
Yeah.
leave the catchphrases to you, man. I don't know if I could top BAM. I don't think I could. That's a pretty.
Oh, Kurish.
I hear that 3 times a day. I go to the grocery
Yeah.
store. I'm like, I'm not even the guy, and they, props to you for that one. I think it's at the point where I think if I said BAM, I think I'd have to pay you for it. I think it's gotten to that level. So, but it's. No, I don't think there's any topping that for me. We'll see. I don't plan on it, but yeah, you aced it with that one.
TBD.
TBD, maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I mean, I'm not retiring anytime soon, so we've got some cool things happening on the drawing board. Of course, we have the renovation at Emeril's, and we're working on a project, EJ and I, called 34, myself being the third and he being the fourth, which is going to be a Portuguese, Spanish-inspired restaurant. And we have another restaurant on the drawing board here in New Orleans. We got a lot of exciting things coming up. And, the one thing doing this for a while now is that that you're on the road. But I've been on the road for a long time that I've never seen the end of the road yet. So I'm just hoping to keep driving on that road and never see the end.
Yeah, it's a nice way to put it, man. I think that's a great. Way to put it. I mean, obviously, the renovation at Emeril's is so substantial, and it's. I mean, even from just an architectural standpoint,
Just from the kitchen standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, just literally from a build out standpoint, it is so substantial. So I'm really excited about that, and we're going to be pedal to the metal, when we get back to reopening. And reasons you have great teams is so that you're able to work on other projects at the same time. But I mean, where my focus is going to be for the next few months. Certainly, that's what's next here. I think is trying to cultivate a representation of not only your legacy, but the legacy of culinary arts in Louisiana, and cultivate a representation of that through the food and through the people in the building and through the story that the food tells. That's the goal here. So, that. Not telling you anything you don't know, but that's what's next for us, and we'll see what happens after that.
Well, what's next for us is I'll see you in about an hour for service.
Yeah, I got to go iron my coat. So.